All right, time for a little machining. This is the clutch housing off an old 2-cylinder John Deere. His buddy has a lathe and did a good job. Looks pretty, that brass. He built the shaft up and then oversized it some. That way we can bore this hole out. The hole is worn oblong. You can see we got chamfer up here and no chamfer over here. So it's been worn, you know, you're worn a 1/16, almost an 1/8 inch that way. So it's kind of hard to use the indicator to square up, but I did the best I could. So when I move up and down, you can see the needle stays right there. So that tells me that it's square. You know, and then from this side, we're roughly at slightly under a 10, like a 6 to 8, and this side we're a 6.5 to 7. So we're within a couple thousandths this way. Here we're somewhere around that 10 to 11. And what are we at? Back here it moved quite a bit, but that's okay because I want it hugging. It's opposite. So my needle's hugging one way, I need the table hugging the other way to try and bring the hole back to center. So I'm going to be cutting dominant to one side as far as my front to back goes, left to right. It looks like it wore to this side, and so I want to be hugging this corner a little bit to bring that hole back to center. But yeah, I think we got plenty of room. You know, it's not like this is an over tolerance fit. So if I'm a few thousandths one way or the other, it's not the end of the world. I think we got some forgiveness here. So yeah, so I just got to fine tune and hunt where I need to be. I enjoy this kind of projects. I only do a couple things a year for machining, but I really like these odd jobs that if you take it to another machine shop, a little hobby guy or a big shop, they're just like, nope, ain't gonna work, can't do it. The other option would be on something like this, you know, for your guys, do-it-yourselfers, is call up a machine shop, resource place like MSC, Tool Supply or something like that, and even Traverse or Grizzly, and you can get adjustable reams. They almost look like a spline shaft, adjustable reams, and you could try and resize that hole yourself with an adjustable ream. And for farm use, you'd get pretty close. But I'm gonna fine tune this and then we'll get cutting. So I'm just doing a really light pass. You can kind of see a little lip back there. Just barely touching it, just to see how we are, how everything's going. Make sure there's no high spots, because it didn't wear like a true, you know, it's not worn very true. It's when you run the dial indicator up and down, there's a lot of spots. You got humps and dips and stuff like that, but we'll get her cleaned up. You can kind of see the shiny lip on that back side, but you can see it's not cutting on this front side. That's our offset, trying to get the shaft back over here. And so yeah, I just take my time. Boy, that I'm using a kettle metal. My brother had a bunch of carbides inserts left over, so I found a boring bar from a company that would work to hold that inserts. And I mean, that thing's cold to the touch yet. These China carbides, they would be hot and they chatter and they squeal and they're noisy. This thing is quiet and smooth. But I'll finish this hole. I got the power down feed on the slowest as possible. We only take tiny cuts because we have this is only a 1/2 inch plate. And so that 1/2 inch plate isn't going to take much more than a few thousandths cuts. And it'll start to move around. And so you can see the handle just barely turning. And he'll just take that cast iron and he'll just make it dust. It'll cut it like butter. And it'll just be a beautiful, beautiful cut. This one I'm doing a ridiculously small cut. Again, for these first couple times, I'm just doing an extremely tiny cut until we start to get a cut all the way around kind of deal. So the last cuts were like 5/1000ths and 10/1000ths cuts. Now here's almost a 20, a pretty near 20/1000ths on each, or oversized. So it'd be a 10/1000ths, you know, cut in half. So it's a lot more cut going on, and we're starting to get full-time cutting all around. But there's enough. You know, it's funny, this half-inch iron plate, they'll mean enough flex that when we get close, I won't adjust the boring bar at all. We'll just go through it another pass and let it clean that bore up, and that will get us several more thousandths of an inch just on a cleanup pass because you have flex everywhere. See if we get it to drop in just the tiniest bit. And the problem when it's on the tractor, so it's bolted on the tractor, and you got that tall, if you've ever been on a John Deere 2-cylinder, you got that 3-foot tall clutch lever, and then the engine just sits there pop, 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 all day long, and that thing just chatters and vibrates. So I think we're going to pop a grease zerk in here if we can. And so then at least he can once a year give it a pop of grease so when it sits there and chatters. But that's a lot better than what it was. It was sloppy and rattly. So at least with the grease in there, you know, you give it a one pump a couple times a year and that will work out good. So depending what's, yeah, so that moves nice, and there's about a 15 to 20 thousandths maybe at the most, oversized for a little bit of clearance in there. But yeah, so let's put her back together or take it apart and get that grease zerk in. Goofy cast, when you're cutting it, it's kind of a pain in the butt. So you really got to hold a lot of pressure with your wrench. By nature, you want to lift the tap because I'm lifting the wrench. And so you got to hold down as well because this cast, you know, it's like cutting through sand. It machines like butter, it's super soft, but you just gotta, again, take your time and let the tap do the thing, and I just do tiny increments at a time so I can maintain that position. But the other nice thing is it just cuts. We don't have any chip build on the, there we poke through. We don't have any chip build, so you don't have to sit there and rock it back and forth, but you got to be careful so you don't ruin your own threads by letting the tap wiggle on you. That's the nice thing. Yeah, see, it just fills up with dust. So it cuts like a dream. It's just really hard to get started. See if I'll put some liquid on that after that. Throw a little bit of the gasket maker on that, and we'll snug that down. All right, give her a parts wash bath, and I filled that bottom hole up with grease, so when we insert the shaft, it'll squeeze some of that grease up and out of there, and that's just fine. But at least we'll know we'll have everything lubed up good, and so let's try and assemble this thing. There we go. You see the grease pop out there? There we be. The grease come out of the bottom. Now you don't get that, the grease is going to stop you from having any tick going on. You still got some good movement. It rolls nice. There's just one little tiny spot where there's the tiniest bit of friction. And that's okay. That will wear in. The rest of it is fine. So yeah, let's take it to the customer and hope they like it.